Everyone, welcome to Accuracy in America. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, semi-fascists, dog-faced pony soldiers, and all of you who are crying about Don Lemon's departure from CNN.
Hey, it's been a slow news week, so we're going to get done here in about 10 minutes, I don't know. It's been crazy. I will start off before we go to the news. I had my homeowner association, issued an edict that I had to power wash my home, and I'm like, I look around the house. I'm like, the site. You've been to my house before. I mean, the siding is a little darker shade anyway. So my thing has always been with them is that the way my house sits, because I can see that one side, that's they judge it on that, and they but then they ignore most of the rest of the neighborhood. And when it comes to that same issue, and I thought, and I started looking at it, and like, well, I can see a few little like green things in there and stuff like that. And so I had somebody an acquaintance I knew through the church. Somebody I didn't even know he did power washing. These are the times you have those friends that but you don't really know what they do, and then you look for a recommendation for something, and you're like, oh, that's his business. Yeah. So they showed up and they did it, and I'm like, okay, well, it looks a little bit better, but hopefully the HOA will be off my back for a number of years now, and everything. So, but in the meantime, you may have seen that post. It's like after they got done and they left, my Wi-Fi was down, and I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, I saw that. It's like,
and I went outside because all those boxes and everything are on the side of the house, and I'm like, yeah, it looks okay, but in the end, so I have Verizon FiOS here, and in my little utility closet thing, where the circuit breakers are and everything like that, they installed a little thing that looks like about a little box, looks like a little battery, and it's called an ONT box, and it has its own source of power. It goes into it's a GCFI thing, whatever, one of those outlets that you have in your kitchen or laundry room. That's
right.
Because it requires so much more power. And I guess somehow during the course of that thing, they tripped that circuit.
Wow.
But it took me forever. Here's my bottom line complaint. In the end, it's just that. And you probably have seen this too. And anybody out there who's who watches or will watch the show probably seen this too, is that customer service really has taken a hit over the years, where trying to find a real life person when you need it is almost impossible. Because what Verizon does is that you call up their number, and everything you do is with their computer in essence, until it gets to a point where I couldn't quite get everything to run right, and then they connected me to a real person. But by the time I got connected to a real person, I figured out what the issue was, and everything got powered up and it returned, for which they double checked. But I'm like, this is just so frustrating when you have to listen to computer prompts and you just don't really get the answer you're looking for. But it just seems to be more common these days.
Right, because there's more problems than they can program into the computer. You know what I mean?
Right. And they do have, frequently, I think, you go on and, it's like, we're ready to chat with you, but it's not really a person chatting with you. It is their bot or whatever, that has got preloaded with answers to handle the basic routine questions. And, and I understand, I understand the need to try to put your customer service people on the more important tasks.
Right.
But, if after like 5 minutes of going through all this rigmarole where they're checking your line and they're doing they can ping you and all this stuff like this, and you still don't have your internet up, give me a live person.
Yeah, let's get involved.
because in the end, they're like, if after 10 minutes this doesn't resolve itself, please call back and we'll prioritize your call. Well, I called back and I had to actually go through the same steps again, and I'm like, where's the prioritization?
Yeah, you didn't prioritize me.
It was a little frustrating, but now I have to just remember in the back of my mind is that if I have my internet going down, I got to make sure to open my closet and look for that one red light on that little box. If it isn't, then I know that that's the main driver and key to the whole thing. So my consumer rant, but I think this is all part of the the broader scope of where this country is that virtually everything you do now, if you're calling up a customer service line or you're going online to resolve an issue, uh, a live person is rarely there. I mean,
Right.
you might, the best response I get tends to be using Twitter.
Yeah, that's right.
They seem to put more resources into Twitter response than they do onto your live phone response or online response. So
yeah, because everybody sees it.
Yeah, that's right. They don't. You badmouth them or say something. It's like they're out there fairly fast.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. So back to the news. Bob has joined us, so I don't want to delay that either. We'll just I realized that so this is the 75th anniversary of the formation of Israel, and so they're going through a whole series of things this week. And yeah, wow, that's what I'm thinking. Like, okay, so it's been around a little bit longer than you or I have, but not a whole lot longer.
No, I have about 13 years.
Yeah, and
started in 48. We're like 60, 61.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a little younger than I am because I'll hit 64 this year.
Yeah.
Creeping towards Medicare and Social Security.
Barely hanging on.
Yeah. Exactly. The the advantage of that whole thing when it gets to the Social Security and Medicare is that I'll be able to have a kind of a bird's eye view. I'll be able to see exactly how it works in today's world. I mean, I saw how it worked when my mom was under that, and she had my father's insurance to backstop that to try to fill the gap. But I'm kind of curious as to how this works, because my wife will turn 65 first, and then I will turn, but you have to assign your Medicare Part B, to Medicare, and then keep some kind of insurance in effect to cover the gap, because Medicare doesn't cover everything. I'd be kind of curious as to how the costs go. Will my insurance premiums drop enough to offset whatever I pay for Medicare? I have no idea. Theoretically, yes, but I'm not necessarily thinking that it will. And just a whole litany of things that goes forth. When I eventually collect Social Security, how's that really going to be if inflation stays high? Does is that going to be a good or bad thing for me, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I mean, it's so there's a lot of attention. I focus on Israel and things there. It is an interesting country. We have very close ties to that, though closer under Republican administrations than most Democrat administrations. But also, Israel and a lot of things that happen around the world, Ukraine, we've talked about this before. It just shows, that the fraying of our relationships, since Trump left office, just shows there's more turmoil on the world stage, with Biden and the lefties kind of controlling the levers of power there on foreign policy.
Well, the problem is they're not really controlling, right? So, yes, Israel is a reliable ally to us. We are a less reliable ally to Israel. I really can't think of any much they've done that would be inimical to our interests, but we have done stuff that messed them up badly. Like right now, we have let Iran, if they don't have the bomb now, they must be, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. The 6-Day War was in 1967. Bob's a little younger than us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm vaguely aware of that, but I mean, I was still fairly young and just playing as a kid, not really looking at politics.
I remember that happening, and I remember, the miracle of it, right? Because there were 8 countries attacked Israel, and they beat them, knocked them all off, right? Got them all out of the country. So, I think it's hard to argue that God has not been with the people of Israel through some of what they've gone through, right? They're maligned. If you have a better solution to what to do after World War II, after what happened to them during World War II, then you should offer it up. But right now, I mean, this is what the world settled on in 1947, 48, and it's worked pretty well. I mean, it's caused some trouble with people who couldn't stand that, they had a 12-mile wide, 184-mile long country that they could live in. There's some people just can't stand that. I remember Larry Miller's, the rant, right, where he talks about, it's like they control the whole Arab world except for something the size of a pack of matches, right? But let's fight over the pack of matches instead of the whole rest of it, right? So there's a lot going on there. Yeah, that's right. So it's still at the heart of that. It's still they were given a thing. They have allowed the Palestinians more freedom than any minority group gets anywhere else in the world. And they continue to agitate at they're funded by Iran. They're there to make trouble for Israel on behalf of Iran, and that group of Muslims. So yeah, and your other point, the Joe Biden foreign policy, we are worried. You have France talking about, hey, don't follow America, follow China. Right.
That
you have Russia and China and the Saudis and the Iranians all joining forces against us. You have Japan weaken in its relationship with us to build stronger relationships with our adversaries. North Korea becoming belligerent again. Russian influence in Africa nearing an all-time high again, right? Russians the things we're not doing, they're running around doing them. And with, money that they got by, you have like most of the world now is defying Biden's sanctions, right? Those sanctions are widely ignored. So the Russians are making more money selling fuel now than they did before the war. U.S. foreign policy is near a collapse. I mean, the entire edifice is very near to just not existing anymore. The idea that these people have not been replaced, is really harrowing. Now, there's some people saying they have information on Jake Sullivan and Blinken that will lead to them having to leave office. Whatever you have, I mean, I don't really care about, I guess I would care about if it happened, the criminal prosecution aspect of it. Just get them out. Get somebody in there that knows what they're doing, because we are collapsing on every front in foreign policy.
I do want to ask you this question, though. In terms of back to Israel, we have it in the House and in the Senate. There are a large number of Democrats who are Jewish, and who are who have shown in the past, at least, that they want a good relationship with Israel. They believe in Israel and they want to support Israel, but it just seems that support has not been as vocal in the last few years as it used to be. I mean, are they now basically caving into the far left on this? Or they have they're
being shouted down, like who has been elevated on that side, like the squad, right? They look at those people and say, here's our future. And those people are virulently anti-Semitic, not just Ilhan Omar either. AOC, Presley, Pramila Jayapal. These people are hardcore anti-Israel, anti-Jew, anti-Jewish race, and no compunction at all about seeing them destroyed. So I mean, that's who Democrats are elected in office now. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it's like things that have never won. Yeah, yeah. I hear that. Well, I mean, it's better. I guess you saw. Did you see the clip this morning of him walking across the lawn with the president of South Korea? And I mean, the president of South Korea is walking along, and Biden is sort of listing and about, waving around, and they're sort of, hey, come here, man, and grab his arm, keep him steady. I mean, it's bad, and the whole world sees that. They're like, we can roll these people. They're not ready for us, and they're not. We have an 80-year-old president who's an 80-year-old, right? He's slowed down, and he's not, his faculties are not there, and it's been run by advisors, and he can't tell. He's past the point where he can tell which advisors are doing a good job, and that's the dangerous thing. They all rely on advisors, right? But he can't tell the good from the bad anymore, and so you have people in place because they've been loyal foot soldiers for him for many years who are just in over their head. Anthony Blinken should not be Secretary of State. Mayorkas should not be running DHS. Jake Sullivan shouldn't be national security advisor. These people are terrible. They haven't done anything right in their lives, and they're running they're the point people of U.S. foreign policy.
Yeah, I mean, on Israel, I mean, if you're Netanyahu or anybody who will run Israel in the future when Bibi's time is up and everything like this, I mean, there has to be some level of concern for the type of people that are being elected, into our government, right? I mean, the House and the Senate, the
one party is essentially ready to watch them burn to the ground.
Yeah, I mean, and so just those strong relationships that are starting to fray. I mean, I just begin to wonder where we're going. I mean, unless we can turn this ship around, we've got to right the course here. As you have so well described. I mean, our foreign policy. You take a look at Biden, at the president, and I mean, as Americans, we need to support our president, as the president of the United States. But it is really hard when you see someone that is obviously not well, that is not, he's not physically fit enough really, and mentally capable really of doing this job and becoming, you want a strong figure, you want somebody who can do this, and Biden is not that strong figure at this point. I mean, so yeah, if you're Iran, if you're South Korea, if you're North Korea, you're Russia, all these people are like, we see an opening here, and we're going to drive a Mack truck through this opening right now while we have that chance. Because if U.S. elects a Republican, no matter which Republican it be, the chance, the likelihood is it's going to be a lot different, a lot stronger on foreign policy than what we've got now, and will change the dynamic again.
Okay, so bear that in mind when you start seeing weird things happen during the election and foreign interference and whatnot, that the rest of the world now is joining together to take advantage of weak American leadership. Okay, so and there's been some clear victories that they have won as a result of this, right? China has dramatically expanded its influence, its support for the Belt and Road Initiative and so forth. Russians have survived the sanctions regime, right? And they're now even flourishing from it because of this. So they do have an interest in the next president not being Republican, right? They're definitely not being Trump, who had them all kind of scared, and maybe rightfully so. So, look for that. That's coming at you. They're absolutely having a stake in the outcome, and they absolutely are willing to, do stuff to get it like they want it. Yeah, markedly worse. That's exactly right. I disagree with what Obama did. I thought he looked at the Iran-Saudi conflict wrong. I thought he didn't take the communists seriously enough. I didn't see any reason to kiss Castro's butt, right? But the fact is, I mean, they were at least reasonably somewhat competent at what it was they were trying to achieve, right? We could argue over what they're trying to achieve, but I mean, we were viewed as a responsible foreign policy actor in the world whose word had to be taken seriously under Obama, and that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, I'm still thinking about, during that debate where Mitt Romney, got up and talked about Russia, and they kind of all just poo-pooed that whole thing. It's like, oh,
yeah,
what happened?
Canadians have called and they want their foreign policy back, and it's like, well, it turns out, yeah, you should have been worried about Russia, right? I mean, he was misguided, but at least he was, what he was doing was taken seriously by the rest of the world. I mean, these people are being treated as a joke, and I don't think the rest of the world is wrong about that.
Yeah,
I think they've sized us up quite correctly.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And on the sanction side, I mean, sanctions are always one of these things. I mean, it's a good political move in terms of it. So it looks like you're trying to do something, but there's plenty of loopholes through a lot of those things. And then the other thing is that there are enough countries out there that are not aligned with us that are like, oh yeah, we'll go. If the U.S. isn't going to buy the oil or do this, we'll pick it up. We'll go ahead and do it.
We need cheap oil too.
Yeah. I mean, the country, the world needs this. I mean, it's a necessary fuel. So like, oh yeah, sure, we'll go ahead and do that. So yeah, Russia has not.
Yeah, it's like football. The sanctions are, that's like trying to hold a block, right? For a little while, you can keep that guy right in front of you, like in basketball, we have our post, right? That post is in there ready to catch it. It's like throw them the ball, because they can't sit there and do that forever, right? The other people are going to get an angle on it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what we are. We're trying to hold the ball forever. We're trying to hold that grip forever, and if that's a tenuous grip, people will endure hardships for only a given amount of time, in the name of, American sanction building or whatever, right? You're not going to get years and years of adherence to something that helps American foreign policy.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's as if the Biden administration, they thought sanctions are going to be the centerpiece to our foreign policy with Russia. No.
Russians, it's not their first rodeo either,
Yeah, no. I mean, it's like, it's not like sanctions are a new thing and people haven't figured out how to deal with sanctions before from just about anything. So it's amazing, just the I don't know, just the inability, the lack of understanding of the people Biden has there for these things.
Right. It's dangerous. I mean, I say I hope we're going to make it to the end of this, because it's been a disaster.
Yeah, and we've got the situation in Sudan. We've got Americans evacuating there. I think the last thing I saw was 2 Americans have been killed, and I don't. It's like, this is not going well.
No, I mean, it's like, Sudan is not a major, but like Sudan is a listening outpost, right? The reason to control Sudan or to have your presence there is to watch that part of the world, right? And that's what a lot of what goes on there. So, that's a listening post we're out of now. We're knocked out of, and there's more on the way. So they're cutting down our ability to watch them.
Yeah, I didn't look into this to see. I mean, Djibouti is not that far away, right?
Right.
I mean, and we have a presence there. I don't know if there's an effect on our presence in Djibouti in relation to this because of the closeness of the situation, or we're just now like making sure that we don't. we have to keep some kind of presence in the region at this point, but.
Right. And it's like it's increasingly hard to do because, we're not effective. We don't really have anything to offer. And, the other people do.
Yeah. All right. So some of the news that has trickled, as you had alluded to at the beginning of the show in your little opening there, was all the people, the wailing and gnashing of teeth for Don Lemon's firing. So we had a kind of a double whammy this week with Don Lemon being fired from CNN while Tucker Carlson and Fox News parted ways as well. So you're in
17 minutes apart, someone told me.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I had heard the Tucker news, and then I went outside to do something, and then I got a phone call from a guy from American Family News, and he wanted to talk about that. But then he mentioned to me about the Don Lemon thing. But I'd been out of the house I had only been in the house for like 20 minutes or something like that, and I completely missed the news.
Yeah,
at that point,
it goes by fast.
Yeah.
So a couple of things on that. So I saw Tucker Friday night. He was at the Heritage thing, and he talked about. And I remember thinking, he must have been busy, right? It didn't look like he had prepared remarks. Maybe he doesn't do prepared remarks in that situation. I don't know. But it looked like he was just sort of sharing some thoughts, right? And so one of the things he talked about, he said, hug your family, tell them you love them. He said that, there's a lot of the problems in the world are, loneliness, people don't feel loved. And he said, pray for the country. He said, we don't, he goes, I'm guilty of this too, but we don't pray for the country, and the country needs our prayers. That was his divisive message to the Heritage Foundation group on Friday night. And then, come there on Monday, and he's been dismissed. I think one of the telling things about this is the Dead Tree Washington Post the next day. Tucker being fired was the only story above the fold, with a headline above the fold that was like the story, and then there was a big picture. And then Don Lemon was on the front of the style section. So, Tucker Carlson, I'm not a cable news person. I shouldn't say that. But, right. I'm not. I'm out doing things, and then I generally watch the end of whatever game is on by the time I get in front of a TV at night for 30 minutes, if that, right? it's not time. All those shows are over, and there's really not time to like watch a show or watch a movie. I don't, really get into any of that because it just takes too long. So, I don't follow like what gets said, but you see the clips that get posted on Twitter and so forth, and so you have some idea of what they're talking about, who they are, and so forth. And the answer is, Tucker Carlson was dropping some bombs in places they didn't want drop bombs dropped. I mean, at the end of the day, if you say, okay, why did he get fired? There's all this speculation, and did he get fired, or is it mutual parting of ways, or what exactly happened there? And because of Rupert Murdoch, this and that and the other. I don't know about that, how it happened or whatever. And I don't think anybody else does either. But and I bet there was a very, very fat check forwarded over to the Carlson account at the end of this. But whatever it was, this guy was drawing 3.5 million viewers a night. There aren't a lot of shows on TV, cable or broadcast, that draw 3.5 million viewers every night. And to say, we don't want that show anymore, we don't want that guy anymore, they're under some extraordinary pressure of some kind, right? You can just say that. Lemon, I think it just became unworkable with the people he was working with. I think they concluded that, he himself was not a big ratings draw. I mean, he has his fans. He's been there 17 years and he knows what he's doing on TV. But I think that he wasn't really adding a lot, and it was a real toxic atmosphere, and they liked the other two people on the show better. So, I don't really understand all that one either, but that looks to me like, he just was not a fit for them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with Lemon. I mean, I think the writing been on the wall for quite some time with Lemon. I mean, it seems that CNN's pattern is a little bit of a slow burn with these guys. I mean, it took them a while to get rid of Cuomo, and I think Lemon. You could see the first thing being dropped here was that when he lost his primetime slot, his nighttime, and he went to the morning show with Harlow and Caitlin Collins, that was definitely a way to negate him. Chris Lick, the new boss over there, has been trying desperately to move the network in a different direction. He's decided he doesn't want to participate in the bias wars or whatever. Leave it to MSNBC and Fox to be right left, and they want to go back to kind of being news reporting in the middle. And then they're adding some other things. I mean, they're putting a lot of other shows into the mix, so they're going in a different direction. But I think, and Lemon. I mean, Lemon. He did this to himself. I mean, he's had a history of saying things and doing things he shouldn't have. I mean, I think the atmosphere, that has been allegedly revealed with his treatment of women at the network, is that's part of it. But I'm sure he lost a ton of support with the whole Nikki Haley comment about not in her prime. I mean, rare
moment of like bipartisan agreement.
Yeah, exactly.
Like all of America's like, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard for liberal women to defend him at that point. I mean, because how old is Nikki Haley? Like 51 or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like
that's a lot of them there.
You hit the bullseye, for women right there. I mean, and you say that,
and then it was like the arrogant way he did it too. It's like, sorry, look it up. You can Google it.
Yeah,
there
right.
It is. Exactly. Past your prime. It's like, we're not really here for breeding, Don. That's only part of it, right?
Right. Yeah, that, and then he did that interview with Vivek Ramaswamy, and I thought Vivek's, he's declared as a presidential candidate for 2024. The one thing about Vivek, is even if he doesn't get, even 0.5% in the polls or whatever, is that he is talking about issues that a lot of people like. And he's having a very good conversation with America. We may not choose to vote for him, like you say, but he is opening some topics that people of both parties want to talk about. Right. And he's well-spoken. He's an intelligent guy. And so, it's like Lemon tried to pin him down on race and all these types of things. It's like, Remo, you look at Vivek, it's like he's not the white guy, and
Yeah,
he tried to point that out. And then and I thought he did a really good job of just kind of saying like, I'm willing to appear on all networks. It's like, saying, in essence, I mean, you understand. I mean, the networks have got the Fox and MSNBC and CNN have a point of view for which, I mean, Lemon didn't really want to admit that there's a point of view, and he's trying to get there. And I just think there's
there was the moment. Remember I guess it was last summer. He was Lemon was on Colbert, right? And Colbert says, I understand that you guys can't be liberal anymore under the new boss. And do you remember what Lemon said?
I don't.
We've never been liberal. Even Colbert's like, what? Yeah, we've never been liberal. It's like, excuse me, sir.
Give him some of that truth serum and see what happens or something.
Yeah. You're not the only one who's aware of what happened on those shows.
Yeah.
Watch those shows. We know what they had.
Yeah. So that, so it'll be, he doesn't have, where he goes and what he does, will be a very different path than wherever Tucker goes, because the level of importance or star quality between the two is vast. As
right.
you say,
and it's not, I mean, their name ID is probably pretty close, right? It's substance. Like, you may not agree with Tucker Carlson, whatever he was talking about that day, but, it was substantive, right? And Lemon is just, low rent hate, right? And I mean, I think that's why one's on A1 and one's on Style.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why, when this is getting discussed, like you go on Twitter, it's like the conservative people lost a great spokesman this week, right? No one's saying the liberal people did too, right? They're all just, this was a bad week for the right, the left, that was little collateral damage that is of not little or no consequence.
Yeah, I think some liberals are probably like, good riddance, because he wasn't
adios.
He really wasn't helping their cause that much. So
right.
It's not a great loss for them. For the conservatives, a lot of them, so with Tucker, there's so many different things. As you said, none of us know. Only the insiders really know what happened there with Tucker. It's interesting you mentioned that. He gives the speech at Heritage. That was their 50th anniversary event and everything. So, and then by Monday, he's gone, and there's some. You begin to wonder what Suzanne Scott and the Murdochs, decided to do over the weekend. How much of this was, was fallout from Dominion? How much of this was alleged treatment of women? His there's so many different things. Tucker, as you said, look, I didn't agree with Tucker a lot of times, and I just thought sometimes it's like, what the heck is he saying? But he was drawing the viewers. And you and I probably have plenty of friends who just love Tucker to death, and are moaning and, and just kind of not happy with Fox for letting him go. Now, Fox has been down this path before. I mean, with Bill O'Reilly, kind of Megyn Kelly. I mean, also, hosts who had been big draws. Glenn Beck wasn't in that time slot, but Glenn Beck also had a very popular show. So they have survived that. Part of my thing here is that I'm just not sure how deep the bench is to fill it, at this point in time. I don't, my first reaction was like, who fills that slot unless they try to move people around a little bit. We'll see. I mean, they're going to do some rotation, I think, and some testing to see what sticks and all of that. Will they be able to get back to 3.5 million viewers a night? That's probably going to take a little while to get back up there. I think with Fox, because of just what Fox is to the conservative movement in general, there is a floor where they'll always get, say, maybe a couple million a night minimum. But to get to the 3 million level is a higher bar to hit, and stuff like that. O'Reilly, Beck, Megyn Kelly, have they? They don't have the bully pulpit or the platform they used to have by not having Fox. Because you have Fox, you have incredible outreach, but they also haven't. I don't know that they've suffered a lot either. All of those three have signed, they've signed on with a thing called Red Seat Ventures, which is through it's basically a private capital, private venture capital, outfit that helps them set up podcasts and all these kinds of things. And actually, one of the partners in that is a guy that used to be a producer for Glenn Beck. And so, I mean, Megyn Kelly's she's got a bullhorn. I mean, she's got, a megaphone or whatever to go and say what she wants to say. And she is free from the corporate overlords, right? I mean, all of these people can say whatever they want to say,
right,
because they're now private.
They're saying it to nobody. They're on a podcast.
Yeah,
like you and me,
I mean,
they got their few friends, and that's it.
I mean, I will admit, I mean, I did subscribe to the Megyn Kelly podcast for a while because I wanted to hear what I think she's an intelligent woman, but I unsubscribed after a few weeks because she spent so much time on Harry and Meghan, and I'm like, okay, look, maybe I know there are a lot of people who love the royals or they hate Harry and Meghan and stuff like this, but I'm into politics and sports and stuff like that. So give me, and I expect more politics from Meghan and more things like that. All this stuff about Harry and Meghan were just a total turnoff for me. I was like, fast forward or just not even listen to the episode.
So Brett Buzzell tells a story where he says he was guest hosting for someone on a talk show, and for 4 straight days. And the first 3 days, all they did was Monica Lewinsky. And he's like, so he comes up on the Friday. He's like, look, I can't do Monica Lewinsky for 3 hours anymore. Can we just open it up for calls today? Just whatever people call in and talk about. And they're like, well, Monica Lewinsky is what's selling. He's like, please, I just don't know any more about it. I can't say any more about it. It's been wrung out, right? So they're like, okay, all right, open phone, whatever comes in, comes in. So 3 hours, people called and asked about Monica Lewinsky. So, if that's the topic, it doesn't matter how, ridiculous the topic is, it's the topic, and you have to cover it.
And now, I mean, these outfits have ways of measuring the audience response and reaction. Many ways they have metrics they can go by. Megyn Kelly herself probably is not that big a person on the royals overall, but if it sells to the audience and draws in advertisers and everything like that and brings the bucks home to her, okay, she's going to go with it.
Yeah.
So why not? It just didn't float my boat, and I just dropped it. I just couldn't do it anymore. And I only got into that because my son Spencer was, he watched some of her YouTube podcasts and mentioned some things. And I thought, I'll just sign up for a podcast because I rarely watch YouTube, but I do listen to podcasts all the time. But I'm like, okay, I need a break from that. I got, give me, if you're not doing if you're going to go off on that and spend half your show doing that, I just can't do it. It's just not.
I really don't care about Harry and Meghan and I really could not imagine myself caring any less about that.
Yeah. Do you know Megan Lott?
Yeah.
Okay. So when that was the one thing. Megan is a huge Royals fan. I mean, it was so funny. Every time in the office, anything about the Royals came up, I mean, she was all over it. And it's like, okay, I mean, there are people. There are people.
I have a friend who's like that. I saw her Friday night too. Who's into it, and good for you. And I don't think it should not be available to them. It just doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do. I mean, I pay attention to this thing of like, I didn't watch the last season of it, but I watched, the first few seasons of The Crown, and I'm very interested in the British monarchy and the whole thing. And I was fascinated by Queen Elizabeth and her reign and things like that. But, and I've been to England. I watched, I've been to Windsor Castle. I've done the whole touristy thing, Tower of London, all that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's fascinating. I mean, the British have got a fascinating history and all of these things, but I am not the diehard guy that's got that sops up every last tidbit of every royal. I mean, I could not tell you all the stuff. I forget most of the stuff about all the royals, about Prince Andrew and all these other scandals and all these things. I really don't care.
Either. You know what? I've been thinking about this. Talking about the British royalty and the British system and so forth. So. The element that they really never had before us was freedom, right? Unalienable rights and endowed by the creator, not the crown, and so forth. And so when you look at like what has become of the British countries around the world, the colonies around the world, right? And freedom is pretty low supply in most of those. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all very much anti-freedom governments now, really oppressive, especially like during the COVID, that, put people in jail. The Prime Minister of Canada, one protest, no violence, and he like cut off people's ability to spend their money, right? He cut you off from your bank. It's just absurd, the things that the people in the British monarchical tradition allow themselves to do. And in Australia during COVID, right, they had the thing, New Zealand had a similar system where they could detect if you're from your phone, if you got more than 5 feet out of your house, and they would send someone over to harass you, right, and arrest you and make you go back in your house. I mean, there was some absurd stuff that happened in the countries that were the British crown colonies.
Yeah, I think some people in some of those countries are wondering, it's like, are we living under communism or something like that?
Right. It's worse. I mean, it's
like, what is this?
Complete autocracy.
Yeah. No, it was bad. It was definitely bad for a lot of these countries. It was just crazy, how things went along those lines.
We taught the world about freedom, and now we don't seem interested in conveying that message anymore. And I think that's like part of the failure of U.S. foreign policy now, is like, we don't really stand for it anymore. We stand for, we're like everybody else. We want, we have some imperialistic aims, and, our coalition against your coalition. And it's not, yeah.
I love that.
Me and Bob have this deal where we're trying to figure out how to quit having to refill beer. Like, why would you, because like you get a glass of beer, right? And then after a while, it needs to be refilled. And now a lot of people say, well, this is because you drank the beer, but, we're trying to figure out a way to like get around that where the beer stays full. But anyway, so we do a lot of research, and we exchange information on it and try to reach the highest point of this scientific inquiry, because, imagine the benefits to the world if we figure it out.
Yeah, I can't say that I do any experimentation and did any when I was in England, but we did go to some pubs and for some pub food, because you got to at least experience pub food in Great Britain and throughout the UK.
Is it any good?
It's kind of a unique type of a thing. So it was, yeah, I enjoyed that. I love this. The experimentation part there.
We're working hard on our research.
And even to John Cunningham's remark earlier about the look for a deal to sell Fox very soon. I'm not sure that that's necessarily going to be the case. I think part of this Fox's future will depend upon the next stage of what happens with these other lawsuits. Whether or not they settle, or they kind of are able to just basically keep Smartmatic and anything else just from really reaching a point where it's going to cost them any more money. I mean, Fox has got money. I mean, they make a lot of money every year. The Dominion one's costing, big bucks. But, one of the,
I would like someone to show me we're going to keep trying. It's all we can do. I want someone to show me that check. When does Fox write the check for $787 million? Because if I don't see it, I'm not going to believe that it ever changed hands, because they are essentially owned by the same people, right? They're both like heavily leveraged by BlackRock. So,
well, Dominion. I mean, the thing was that the Journal had an article the other day that there was something called, I think it was called Staple Street Partners, was the main funder of this. It's another venture capital firm, and so they're going to be reaping a windfall. Now, I don't know how much of this money is going to the lawyers, 40%, or they did do it on a contingency basis, probably. Mm-hmm. So a bunch of this money is going to go to the lawyers, as it always does. Some will go back to the investors and whatnot. But you and I, as taxpayers, this is what Keith Olbermann was ranting about, which just cracked me up, because he was mad. I mean, the thing about the settlement was that liberals were irate about the settlement because, one thing is that they wanted to see the Tucker Carlsons and all these people, in court under oath, right? And they didn't get to see that. and then then Olbermann makes this point, which is actually true, is, and to the extent that because it's because it's not, this is a settlement, it's not paid to the government, it's a business expense.
Right.
So it could be
off your taxes.
$230 million of this will basically be on us.
Right. That's
yeah.
Right.
In the end, does the amount specified actually get paid out overall? None of us really know in the end, right? I mean, these are things that go through here. Spencer's come in here with this comment. We're really going down this beer route here.
Okay. So we'll try an 8. It'll probably be boring and like he is, but it's worth a try.
Yep. See, so I do the show with a couple of friends of mine on Friday night, and it's I put together topics, and sometimes we stick to them. But the guy whose show it is, I never know. Sometimes I never know where he's going, and the tangents go everywhere. I mean, sometimes you spend 30 minutes talking about gardening or something like that, because he likes to garden and and grow tomatoes and other vegetables, and I just never know. Even though I list topics like this, I never know where it's going. So the beer segue was not part of the plan there, guys, as you well know probably from watching this show. I will.
I don't think we've ever covered beer.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah,
before.
Me covering
260 something episodes. That's right.
Yeah, I like this one. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Yeah, he's not right very often, but this time he hit the nail on the head, kind of. I'll throw in one more thing about the whole British thing. This is more of an inside thing for me. So once a month, I have our church missionaries. We have this thing at the visitor center, and it's called a Why I Believe Fireside. And so I started this little tradition with a lot of the guys, the elders. And I started giving out some leftover American flag ties I had. And I make it, it's kind of, I haven't given it, we have, I don't know, we probably have like 80 guys, and I've given out like 25 of them. It's like, I don't want to have a picture of 80, trying to gather 80. It's just impossible to gather 80 people together in this event after this event is over. So, I just remind them to wear their tie, and we take a picture after the event is over. But I was talking with one of the missionaries, and we're deciding. So it's like, well, should we give the tie to this guy? And so we actually have a missionary who is from the UK. And my response was to the other missionary before the British guy showed up. I says, no, they lost.
Yeah, sprinkles are for winners.
So yeah, so when he showed up, and he was trying to figure this out, he all of a sudden he's like, he just sees a whole bunch of us wearing the same tie. And he's trying to figure out what was going on. And I said, well, we decided we can't give you one because you lost, Poor
in there in the old mission conference.
Nice thing to say to an 18-year-old missionary.
That's right. Oh.
All right. Another thing I just want to cover real quick, though, is just get your opinion about BuzzFeed News shutting down.
So I guess they're folding it into HuffPost.
HuffPost, yeah. But they're letting people go.
Yeah, they're letting a lot of people go. That's going on a lot of places. Right. There's a lot of downsizing going on in employers, big and small, in this industry and in other industries. So you have a like growing unemployment problem. We're about to enter into a legit, everyone recognizes it, recession. So that's part of it. BuzzFeed, they went for the sensational. That was a media moment, and to me, they were kind of a transitive. They sort of took us from one place to another in media. It was like okay to publish whatever, go for splash. Don't worry about substance. Clean up the mess later. They really kind of accelerated that trend, especially like publishing the Steele dossier, right, which ended up being really beneficial for Trump, right? You knew what was in it. They knew what they had to. They knew they were able to read it and say, okay, we didn't do any of this stuff, and act accordingly, right? They knew the full extent of what could be thrown at them. They were never caught off balance by an accusation because they had the whole list. So, and a lot of leftists are mad at them about that. So, I mean, I guess that was their most famous moment. I don't think anybody will miss him.
Yeah, I don't think so either. It's so our last topic before we wrap up will be just on Biden Harris 2024. That video is like, so I'm like, okay, so it looks like you're trying to remind people and scare them again about Donald Trump, and that, only Joe Biden can keep America safe or whatever, and all this stuff, all these images that they threw in from January, all this other stuff. And what are their accomplishments? I mean,
Right.
he's trying to talk about bipartisan this and the Inflation Reduction Act and all this stuff. It's like, but what about record, 40-year high inflation,
Right.
and
$4, $5 gas.
Yeah. What about all of this?
Deteriorated situation around the world, chaos on the border, fentanyl killing 150,000 people a year. 3.5 million getaways in the last year. We have no idea who those people are or where they went. There's a lot of evidence now that some of them may be coming from China, Russia, other places very hostile to our interests. Yeah, it's been a disaster of a presidency. And, the theme of this, he wants to, that's right. The theme of his is like freedom, right? And it's like, oh, they're passing election laws so we can't vote. Well, the election law that they were so mad about in Georgia, there was a record turnout in the Warnock-Walker runoff, right? That drew a record. That was not, there was one thing on the ballot, right? There was no president on the ballot. There was not even really control of Congress on the ballot, right? There was one election and it drew record turnout. So the argument that these things are hurting turnout was dismissed with that. So, I think that's part of it. I don't think that, that's what, if that's his claim, I really don't think, in the like voter ID issue is about 82 to 85% our way, right? Most, like 82 to 85% of Americans, depending on who polls it and how they poll it, agree that you should have to show an ID to vote. Right, that's not an unpopular idea. Is that really what he's going to go against? Is that that sort of shows me that he doesn't feel comfortable arguing about much else. Right, really can't talk about the economy. Can't talk about. I mean, we gone under Trump. First 3 years of the Trump administration, household income was up $5,500 per family. Now it's down to almost $2,000 a family. You can't argue that away. Now, what they're banking on is people hate Trump so bad that they just won't vote for him no matter what. And I am beginning to see signs that that's just not true anymore. So we'll see. It's a long way to go, but I don't think that Trump is as unelectable as these people are telling us that he is, especially considering Biden is on the, he's just getting into having to deal with some scandal, right? That something's going to happen with his son, one way or the other. They can't not do it now. You have this thing. What was it on here? They caused this laptop misinformation intelligence committee thing to happen. That was a campaign function, right? So you've told that the entire U.S. intel community to go lie to the American people so you can be president. Okay, that destroys a lot of trust in people whose thing is trust, whose currency, whose coin of the realm is trust. Yeah, and I guess to what John says there, the first New York Times has a piece out today saying, hey, you guys have kept Joe from the voters because you don't want to see how old and decrepit he is and confused and his tendency for molesting, young females wherever he sees them and whatnot. That people, you're adding to the speculation that he's too old to be president, right? Because if we can't see him and hear him talk and he's shuffled away and you got the bunny going, no, don't answer the questions, people are like, okay, this guy can't handle the questions. He can't answer the questions. So, I mean, it's a real crisis of confidence. All these people telling me that, Trump can't win, they don't realize how bad Biden is.
Yeah, I mean, the problem the Democrats are facing is that they had the whole age issue and his inability. I mean, Biden's going to have to be on the campaign trail and talk, and won't be able to be on script all the time. That's bad news for them. And then
Yeah.
you're also voting for Kamala Harris, who has instilled zero confidence in a lot of even Democrats, and that's scary. So I mean, this is not
right. It's doubly scary because this time you're like, okay, it's very real that she could be president. He would be what, 86 when the term ended.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the idea that man watching him function now is going to be good, functioning, sharp on the ball in 5 or 6 years from now, I don't think so. Right? You're pretty much guaranteed you're going to have some period of time where she's the president. And the press secretary messed up, KJP, yesterday, and actually said, they're making plans for him to not serve the whole term. We're going to have, and they're like, oh, no, that's not what I meant. Of course, it wasn't what you meant. It was the truth. You didn't mean to tell the truth. Right?
All right. So, we're just
they're in a lot more trouble than people. And Larry Sabato even had a piece in the last few days saying, this is not the slam dunk all the Biden people seem to think it is. Absolutely.
We're getting a lot of funny comments today.
The other thing is, other bright spot, and I guess we're running out of time, is the Republicans in the House everybody is staying on message, right? They've had 3 complete party line votes this week, right? Absolutely, all Republicans on one side, all Democrats on the other. The Senate appears to be holding too, even though recalcitrant, the Susan Collinses and Mitt Romneys are voting like they're supposed to vote. So if you can stay in line, and make them, for instance, take some cram on this debt reduction, right? The House should pass its bill today. I guess the rule is already passed, so they're just waiting on final passage. That's going to be hard. I mean, what does Joe Biden do there, right? Because his thing is, we're not negotiating anything. It's like, well, then it's going to go belly up. Now, then you get to the Republicans. That's always the part where, oh well, the country's closed and we're not paying our debts, and the credit people are saying bad things. We better come to some agreement here. It's like, no, stand there and make them take your terms. You have all the cards right now, and your voters, the people you're here for, want you to hold the line.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Republicans are going to give him something, not something he wants in the way that he wants it to be. But then you're the president. Now, then you're threatening to veto it. It's like, well, now the onus is on you.
Right. That's right. Here's a plan that, passed Congress. It's your problem at this point.
Right. All right. I'll let you say one final thing, and then I got to wrap it up.
One final thing. I'm looking on our list. Elon Musk is increasingly stepping out on these social issues, and one of the biggest ones is the trans issue. And I think one of the things the Democrats are finding out is that popular opinion is not where they thought it was on this, right? As evidenced by this and by the Bud Light debacle, right? The whole brand marketing team has been fired for one commercial. So, it's not, you think that the whole country's gone to hell in a handbasket, and the actual answer is not quite yet.
All right. Very good. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed it. And as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America, and we'll be back with you again next week.